You're going to hear an audio tape of Grandma Iole Banker, Grandma Iole Martinat Banker, and I'm going to show you photos of the family. These photos came from the wedding album when my parents got married, when Yolanda Roberta Banker Coates married my dad, Eugene Arthur Coates. And I like Grandpa Bob's tie there. It's a really snazzy looking tie. Okay, here we go, and Grandma Iole is going to be speaking a little bit in her dialect, Prustinank.
This is how we say to kill in Prustinank. Masa. Okay, say it again without opening the refrigerator, please. Masa.
Masa.
Kill the devil. Now say it in Prustinank. Masa ludio. Frog. The frog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city, on silent haunches, and then moves on. And that's by Carl Sandburg. Thank you.
And the name of that poem was Fog.
The tide rises, the tide falls. The tide rises, the tide falls. At twilight, the twilight darkens, the curlew calls. Along the sea sands damp and brown, the traveler hastens towards the town. And the tide rises, the tide falls. Darkness settles on roofs and walls, but the sea in the darkness calls. The little waves with their soft white hands efface the footprints in the sand, and the tide rises and the tide falls. The morning breaks, the steeds in their stalls stamp and neigh as the halter calls. The day returns, but nevermore returns the traveler to the shore, and the tide rises and the tide falls. By Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Thank you. Okay. Let us now examine chiefdoms and their...
Yeah, that was a poem called The Tide Rises and the Tide Falls. And this photo shows in the white wedding dress, there's my mom, Yolanda Roberta Banker Coates, and her dad is walking her down the aisle. So Grandpa Bob, Robert Lemuel Banker is walking her down the aisle. And then my dad, the one that my mom's going to marry, is right over there in the upper right side. And that's Eugene Arthur Coates. And I'm not sure if I see his dad Eldred right here. It might be the man with the white hair there, but over here it's Eugene's mother, Elsie. Elsie Coates. I think her maiden name was Ellis. And you know what? No, the man with the white hair right there behind my dad is Dante Martinat, Grandma Iole's dad. And there's Jack, Iola's son. And over here in the front row there, you see a little bit of Grandma Iole and her mom, Ida. And, yeah. Geez, big church, big, tall cathedral ceilings. There's my mom and dad right there. And there's the wedding kiss. And then here's my mom and dad after they got married, walking down the aisle. My mom had been married once before to Al LeCount, so her name prior was Yolanda LeCount, and then I think it went back to Iole Banker. And when she married Al, he already had a son of his own. That spent part of the time with them, so she was like the stepmother. Oh, excuse me. She was like the stepmother to the son that was there some of the time. He was probably, I don't know, around 9 or 10, something like that. It's just the priest over there. So I think my mom was about 37, maybe 36 and 8 months or so, or not, yeah. And my dad was probably about 35 there. I'm sorry, 45 there. 45. He was about 9 years older than her. He has a gray suit on. He'd been married before too. My dad, Eugene, he married the same lady twice. They were married, then they got divorced, then they got married again. Her name was Patricia somebody, but they didn't have any kids. It was hard for my dad to have kids because he had mumps when he was a boy, and that affects something and makes it difficult to have children. So I'm glad that I'm here.